Oh, smack. That's what we call good old pistol whipping. How's it going, everybody? New York Mets with their biggest blowout win of the season thus far against the San Francisco Giants to start off a three-game set. 13-3 is your final. It is 12:40 a.m. here on the East Coast, and I don't give a absolute damn. What a massive, and I truly mean massive, victory for the Amazons. How's it going, everybody? Thank you all so much for chiming in for the latest post-game show here on WardyNYM. We got so much to break down. I know that not a lot of you guys are awake right now, so many of you are watching the replay. Know that I appreciate you, and I really appreciate you watching and being in here, as I'll be breaking down everything that actually transpired in this 10-run of a lead victory against these Giants. 13-3 is your total. Everyone in the live stream, how we feeling? Hit that like and subscribe button, folks. Help us get to the first 100 likes here in the show, and then to 16K subs. Next short-term goal here in WardyNYM. But guys, everyone in the chat, let me know your thoughts right now. My Wi-Fi might be dropping a bit, so if I go really bad quality for a minute or two, don't be phased, guys. It'll pick back up. Again, I've been having this issue the past week, so I do apologize if there's any issues there. But I want to know how everyone's feeling. I know that, especially if you're on the East Coast, you stayed up for this one. Maybe you had some coffee. Maybe you had an espresso shot or two. Either way, it feels good knowing that the Mets come out after having themselves being down 2-0. And I jokingly put on Twitter earlier, say that, 2-run lead is the worst lead in all baseball. And I jokingly said that because the Mets won 2-0 their series finale against the Rockies yesterday. Then the Mets go and score themselves 13 effing runs today. Only 18 hits. They had 6 infield hits, which was absolutely mind-boggling. The Mets lead the league by far in infield hits. They did exactly that and just were ridiculous. They had some luck go their way against Alex Cobb, but man, oh man, was this just phenomenal hitting. Great approach from the first batter to the last for the Mets today. They even faced a position player in the top of the 9th inning, and with 2 outs, the Mets do what they did best. The Mets already had 6+ runs on 2 outs so far in this game. They had another rally, scoring a couple more runs in the 9th with 2 outs off of a position player, which I thought was hilarious. I don't even have the highlights for that 9th inning in here because I just thought it was, he's literally throwing 42-mile-per-hour euphrases, and then Escobar's like, screw this guy, I need to get on a roll. So then he hits himself and pulls out one in for a double to bring in a couple runs. Guys, there was so much offense in tonight's game. Now, for the first time this season, after covering basically every single game this year for the most part, I simply cannot fit the amount of offense in Wardy's top 5. As you see, we got the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Everyone contributed offensively. The entire Mets lineup, 1 through 9, had at minimum 1 hit tonight, folks. And it wasn't just the great offense. They had the pitching to back it up. That's why he's my number 1 star. I'll be breaking down his arsenal here in a second because we got to go down how this game transpired. But David Peterson, David, what do you do not pitching in 10 days since the last time he had his most recent start, which was in AAA? The first time since May 3rd, in which Pearson gave up 3 to 4 earned runs in his last start, which was basically a month ago at the MLB level. He comes out in San Francisco tonight, shoves beautifully, gives up a bomb early in this one to give the early 2-0 lead to the Giants because Crawford took him deep dead center there in the bomb the second. Other than that, though, he was perfectly masterful. 6 innings, 3 hits, 2 earned runs, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts, and 99 pitches. With all this offense, David Pearson is still my number 1 guy today, folks, because yes, do I think the Mets could have won without Pearson today? Given the offense, yeah, probably. But it's the fact that this guy hasn't pitched as a starter in the MLB in quite literally a month, 20 days to be exact, and hasn't pitched at all in really 10 days since his last start in AAA. So huge credit where credit needs to be due. That being for David Pearson. He now has just an over 2 ERA on the year. It actually rose entering tonight's game because he's just been so good. I'm so proud of Pearson, but more importantly, I'm so proud of this Mets team. Guys, I see a bunch of donations. Don't worry. I'll be addressing all your comments, questions, and concerns after I break down what transpired in this Mets victory. But don't hesitate again from continuing smashing that like and subscribe button, folks. We'll be live a minimum of an hour tonight. I don't care how late or how early, I should say, it is here in the live stream. Doesn't matter. But let's break down, how did this Mets game happen, folks? How did the Mets manage to get 18 hits, 13 runs? Yes, 13 effing runs. A 3.14 expected batting average for the Amazons tonight. 6 infield base knocks. How did we get here? Let's break it down. Like I said, the game started off early. The Mets went down 1-2-3 in order. They were struck out the side by Alex Cobb, who Alex Cobb entered tonight's game against the Mets, having given up 4 runs total, 3 earned runs against the Mets in his first start against them a month ago. Then he left the game with injury. Alex Cobb has, a bloated ERA on the year, because if you look at his advanced numbers, they just show you how unlucky he has been, and the lack of luck continued today for Mr. Alex Cobb, unfortunately, because there were just base hit after base hit, and it was all soft contact. And the Mets, again, lead the league by far with infield singles. They just tacked on another 6 today that led Cobb crazy, and I don't blame him whatsoever. J.D. Davis gets himself a base knock there in the third, the top of the third. WardyNYM with an infield single, the first of 5 more that you would see after that. Marte with an infield single. Then you got bases juiced right away. Francisco Lindor comes up to the plate. They're talking about Lindor. It is his opportunity to get his 500th career RBI, and he does exactly that with a weird fluky, almost like bloop opposite field double down the third baseline that Darren Ruff, who literally looks like Kyle Schwarber, if not worse, there in left field, couldn't handle it. Falls in the net that you guys seen the highlights here that we have in the live show. And that brings in a couple runs for the Mets, basically kind of like a ground rule double kind of look. No less, the Mets at that point were able to get the scoring. They tied the game 2-2 there, and that wouldn't be all there in the third inning because the runs continued. Thank you so much. Pete Alonso entered today's game, folks, having himself 8 RBIs and 2 home runs in 7 career games at Oracle Park. Tonight, his second at bat, I should say, had himself getting an absolute piss missile, a 3-run shot for Big Meat Pete, Polar Bear Pete, Pistol Meat Pete, whatever you want to call him is what we're breaking him down for Alonso. He notches his 40th RBI of the year. He's basically RBI per game, 11 home runs that ties the NL lead. He has been simply phenomenal every single day for the New York Mets, more often than not. He's not just a power hitter. He's not just one of the best sluggers in the game, but he's a guy that can hit for contact now that we're seeing, which is a new element to Pete Alonso's game. His play discipline is better than I think we've ever seen it. So huge props to Alonso to blow open the doors early here and give the Mets at that point a 3-run lead in here in the top of the third, up 5-2 to be exactly that. Then, of course, we head to the 4th inning and just attack on more infield singles. This didn't lead to a run, but I just want to tell you because, like I said, there were so many effing infield singles today. I was blown away by this. But you saw Eduardo Escobar get an infield single, try and get out of his month-long slump. He originally was called out at first, and they reviewed it. He was clearly safe, so good for him. Then we get to the 5th inning for the Mets. Then you have WardyNYM with another infield single, his second in back-to-back at-bats for himself. And then he takes second base after a wild pitch. So it wasn't a technical steal, but it was nice to see great base running awareness. And the Mets have phenomenal base running tonight without even their third base coach and Joey Cora, because Joey's away for tonight's game and maybe for the entire series for a family matter. Hope everything's okay on his front. But Glenn Sherlock, who's normally on the bench for the Mets, he was at third base for the third base coach, and he was great for the Mets. Everyone was phenomenal. But then after the 5th inning, the Mets didn't score there. We get to the 6th. Jeff McNeil gets himself a single, and then he steals third base. Why? Because he's just an absolute beauty. And then J.D. Davis, J.D. Double D Davis, baby, the man who had a decent matchup going into tonight. He's hit really well in San Francisco in his young career. And while I was a little griped to see Luis Guillorme not in the lineup tonight, I talked about him on my series preview, as did everyone else talk about him as well, wondering why is Guillorme not in the lineup when he's batting over 500 over his past 7 games and batted 429 with a right around over 1,000 OPS in the first series against the Giants and 11 play appearances earlier this year. But no, they have JD in there as a DH spot, and JD was arguably the best hitter for the Mets today. He went 4 for 5, but it started off there that you see with a beautiful RBI double. I believe that was down the third baseline that ended up bringing Jeff McNeil, and the Mets tack on the lead there in the 6th. But no, we get to the 8th inning, and the runs don't stop, baby. This team is relentless. There is no stopping, pushing more gas, metal to the pedal, baby. 8th inning, Pete Alonso with the infield single. You see the trend here. So many infield singles. The Mets had both soft and hard contact like crazy today. I don't think I've ever seen a game for the Mets in a blowout like this, one, which is so great to say, but two, where the Mets had really two different games. They had a bunch of really soft contact hits infield-wise. Then they also had a bunch of ridiculous high exit velo, the 95 to 110 plus miles per hour, just with ease. It was such a crazy balance, but I loved every second of it. Alonso with that infield single in the 8th inning. Then Jeff McNeil gets himself an absolute bomb. And the best part about McNeil getting a bomb into the bay in right field is the fact that you had a heckler the entire effing game for the Giants. He has to be the Mets mascot at this point because all this guy did was jinx the Giants like no tomorrow. Every at-bat going up against McNeil, you could hear it there. He was saying, oh, McNeil, you have no power. You're not going to take him deep. And then McNeil takes him deep for his second bomb of the year. And again, my Wi-Fi has been finicky, folks. So if my quality drops here in the stream for the visuals for a couple minutes, I do apologize. Again, I don't know why that is. But still, phenomenal stuff there from Jeff to get his second bomb of the year. Absolute no doubter. It was a tank as soon as it hit off the bat. Beautifully barreled. And then after that, the runs continue even more for the Mets. Back-to-back bombs as Mark Canha gets a solo shot, pulls that baby to left field. From the Bay Area, has been known for being out west his entire life. Through his time in Oakland, he feels comfortable, ready to go, and he hits a tank. Mets go back-to-back. They just secure. At that point, I believe the Mets had to have had a 10-run lead. J.D. Davis, however, tacks on even more, gets himself a double. And then Patrick effing Mazeika, the best hitting catcher for the Mets, it feels like this season. Since James McCann has went down with injury, Patrick Mazeika has rose. And, oh, what, you want Wilson Contreras? Oh, you want someone else? No, I got you at the catching position, baby. I'm going to help with some runs. He was the last Mets batter that needed a hit tonight, and it took the 8th inning after a couple flyouts, but he finally got it. An RBI double down the first baseline, and that was another run scored by the Mets in which you had the Giants fan heckling during every at-bat. Absolutely hilarious. And then we get to the 9th, and they have a position player in there throwing 40-plus mile per hour euphuses. He tried to throw a fastball. It was nowhere close at like 84 miles per hour. No less, the Mets actually ground out back-to-back. Lindor and Alonso basically almost first pitch swinging for them too. And it looks like that you're going to have the cleanest inning the Giants have had all game. But no, that doesn't happen as Eduardo Escobar gets a 2-run double. He says, F that position player. I'm going to stat pad. I need to get back on the right foot heading into June, and hopefully this will help me. And then J.D. Davis himself, 2 out of RBI singles. So just ridiculous offense from the Mets overall tonight, folks. If you look at pitching again, David Pearson was simply lights out. He was money. He was just chef's kiss. 6 innings, 6 strikeouts, 3 hits, 2 earned runs, 2.16 career ERA now on the season at least. Colin Holderman came in after him and came up huge. 2 scoreless innings for the Mets for Holderman, who's been absolute money, has yet to give up an earned run at the MLB level this season through now, I believe, 4 or 5 innings pitched. That's great to see for the 6'7", 240-plus pound right-hander, an absolute beast. And he was dealing with a bleeding thumb after the first pitch he threw tonight, stayed in there and got the job done for 2 innings. Then Chasen Shreve ended up giving a couple of base knocks and a run there in the bottom of the 9th, but it didn't matter. Shreve, who has struggled in his last couple outings, was in a position where it was okay if he gave up a run or 2. But for the Giants, Alex Cobb, like I said, the Giants got worked. And Alex Cobb gave up 6 earned runs, 10 hits, 7 strikeouts on 90 pitches. Now is a 6.25 ERA on the year for Cobb, which again is deceiving. I felt bad for Cobb. He just had the worst luck. This guy's trying to be a Gold Glover in the infield every freaking play that you saw there in the 3rd, because the Mets just kept getting infield single after infield single. He just looked tired and exhausted. And this Giants team that has dealt with some guys with injuries and has dealt with a lack of pitching this month, they were 8-11 entering today's game, and that continued. They were now 8-12 in May for the month of May. And they surrendered 20 runs in only a 3-game span against the Padres. They've already surrendered 13 runs in 1 game of a 3-game set against the Mets. So when it rains, it pours. Normally, this is a Giants team that I think about, oh my goodness, they just got pistol whipped in their last series, getting swept by San Diego. This isn't a good thing, but no, it actually ended up being the opposite. One of those rare occurrences that benefits the Mets. Wow, oh, wow, oh, wow. My goodness. But let's talk about for a second, folks, David Pearson's Arsenal. Then after that, I'm going to go through the lineup once more on the offense and why it was so tremendous, how everyone performed. Then from there, I'll be getting into all your donations, comments, and concerns. And for people on replay, you know the drill. I'll be cutting things off then, so that way you don't have to watch a prolonged show on replay if you're not interested. But David Pearson had his 5-pitch mix tonight. Again, it wasn't just the fact that the Mets blew out this game. It's the fact that the Mets had quality pitching the entire outing. This was, I would say, probably the most dominant win the Mets have had all season long. This is a season high for them in runs scored, RBIs, but also the fact that you got the best of both worlds, not just great offense, but great pitching. Because David, in his 5-pitch arsenal tonight, had his four-seam fastball, what he utilized the most, at 37% of his arsenal. He topped out on 96 with the velo. Minimum was 91, and the average was 94 for David. Then the slider at 26% of his arsenal. Peterson topping out 88 on the velo. Minimum was 81, and the average was 86. Sinker, 17% of the arsenal for Pearson tonight. 95 topping out. Minimum 90, and 93 was the average. Changeup, 16% of the arsenal, that being for Peterson tonight. Topping out at 90, minimum 85, average was 87. And I don't know if I said it, but the sinker was a pitch I discussed right before the changeup, guys. And last but not least, the curveball for Pearson. Only threw it 3 times tonight. Topped out at 80 miles per hour, minimum 77, average 78. But man, oh man, this is huge for the Mets to get this kind of production. 6 quality innings from David Pearson, guys. Tyler McGill was thrown off a mound today. He's going to be back before we know it. So just like that, with all these woes with the pitching, like I said, this series could make or break the Mets, in my opinion, where how they evaluate their staff for really the weeks going forward on if they really feel desperate to acquire someone. Yes, they still have Thomas Szapucki, the unproven southpaw that's set to pitch in the series finale this Wednesday. But to have Pearson come out and do what he did, you have to feel confident if you're Buck Showalter in the Mets front office, knowing that you have a lefty that has been performing quality outings more often than not, and now gives the Mets more flexibility. Maybe you have a lack of desperation in approaching their rotation. Yeah, this was just massive on all fronts, guys. It's as simple as that. Buck Showalter's 66th birthday, no less. And I didn't get to address it, but I did see a comment a couple minutes ago before I went live for my series preview show, I think, that someone said that he hopes that the Mets win big tonight, meaning it's his birthday. And his birthday last year for the Mets, they didn't win. Well, whoever that was, I don't remember the gentleman's name. I'll have to go back and double check after the show. Shout out to you. Happy birthday, my man, along with Buck. I hope you enjoyed this phenomenal 10-run difference of a birthday victory, winning 13-3 for the Mets over the Giants. But guys, let's go through the Mets lineup quickly, because offensively, like I said, they were ridiculous. David Pearson is my number 1 star. How can he not be? Even with all this great offense, you have to give credit where credit's due, from a masterful performance on the mound. And that's what we got from David today. Only giving up 3 hits against the Giants team, even with their struggles, is very much important in my opinion. Then Pete Alonso, my number 2 star. I mean, Pete, what else can you say? Alonso leads the league in RBIs. He's tied it for the NL lead in home runs, and this man just doesn't stop hitting. Alonso currently on the season is batting .288 with an .880 OPS. The fact that not even a week ago I had schmucks in my live stream chat telling me that Pete Alonso is really underwhelming and not performing well. Well, I'm sorry. I don't know if you've been living under a rock. This is the exact reason why you do not overreact to, say, a short slump or just a couple games of not great performance. When you're someone like Pete Alonso, you know that he's the backbone of this team, and he's one of the best sluggers, if not the best slugger in all baseball. Let's just think for a second, guys. How many players have more home runs than Pete Alonso since Alonso entered the league in 2019? It shouldn't take you that hard to figure out. It shouldn't take you that long to figure out, I should say, because Alonso has the most home runs in all the MLBs since he's arrived as a rookie a couple years ago. So there you go. But Alonso, 3 for 5 tonight with that massive 3-run bomb. 3 RBIs, 2 runs scored. Jeff McNeil, my number 3 star. Jeff went 2 for 4 tonight after starting the night, I believe, over 3, which is even crazier to think about, with a home run, a masterful, just a tank job to the bay in right field, and really not even right field, and went out of the park, literally. 3 RBIs and 2 runs scored for Jeff tonight. Jeff now on the season has a .311 average and .808 OPS. JD Davis with his best performance of the season. I think one could rightfully say that. JD entered today's game with, I think, what, a $178 or a $180 something average. He comes out tonight with a .230 average and a just sub 700 OPS which aren't great numbers. But again, he goes 4 for 5, great exit velo, barreling the ball well. Even if you take that RBI away that he scored off of a position player in the ninth, it doesn't change the fact of how well JD was locked in at the plate today, which is great to see for the Mets needing more consistency at the DH position. Hopefully, this is the start of something more consistent with JD. 4 for 5 with 2 doubles, 2 RBIs, and 2 runs scored. Then, last but not least, my number 5th star. He only had 1 hit tonight, but man, oh man, did it count. His 500th RBI, backed up by some phenomenal defense, was Mr. Smile, or should I say Mr. 500 now in Francisco Lindor. Frankie goes 1 for 5 with that 2 RBI double and a run scored in tonight's game. And guys, throughout the entire Mets lineup today, Brandon Nimmo, 2 for 5 with a run scored. Starling Marte, 1 for 5 with a run scored. Then we also have Mark Canha. I don't even have Canha in my top 5. And this man just casually went 2 for 5, 2 runs scored, and an RBI thanks to a solo shot after McNeil's bomb there in the 8th. And Eddie Escobar himself too, 2 for 5 with a run scored, a double, and 2 RBIs. Yes, it came off of a position player, but it doesn't matter because we will take that any day of the week when Eddie can use all the help possible after what he's dealt with lately, which has quite literally been a month-plus long slump. That's not an exaggeration. I thought Eddie looked good with the glove today at third, and I thought he looked good at the plate. I mean, again, it wasn't phenomenal, but at least he was able to get that double in the ninth. I'm not going to complain. And Patty Mazika, again, 1 for 5 with the RBI double. Just beautiful stuff by the Mets tonight, guys. I want to shut up now. I just want to answer all your comments, questions, and concerns. I want to stop ranting about this game without answering your comments now. So guys, I see a bunch of donations. I'm going to start answering them. I see a bunch of great comments overall. I'm going to get to them all now. For people live, which is all you guys, just staying pat for 2 seconds. You know the drill. I'll be doing my stare. For people on replay, this is where I'll be cutting things off. So guys, please make sure to let me know your thoughts and comments below. I know a lot of you guys watching this are watching on replay because most of you guys, not most, but a good majority of you guys have been sleeping tonight and watched the whole game. So I hope I provide the best update and really recap of this game for you possible. If I did, please make sure to drop that like and subscribe button. Always appreciate here on the channel. But let me know your thoughts down below after pretty much the best victory the Mets have had all season long, which feels like it's crazy to say because the Mets keep one-upping each other with great wins this season, winning 13-3. Who stood out the most for you tonight as a Mets fan? Let me know in the comments below. Again, smash those buttons. People on the live, I'll start answering your questions now. But again, for people on replay, this is where I'll be cutting things off.